Chair Eck, we are streaming. We're waiting for member Bechtel, but we do have a quorum. So if you want to start, oh, she just showed up. Okay.
Thank you. I'm here.
That needs to be fixed.
Okay.
Kayla, can you hear me?
Yes.
She said yes, but
We can't hear.
we can't hear her.
We can't hear you, Gayla.
Well,
Why don't you do this, promote her to panelist?
Yeah.
Do the three dots there.
okay.
Lisa can hear her on Zoom.
Can y'all hear me now?
Okay, so if you go to panelist, she's a panelist now. So. That should be it. 360 count.
Gayla, can you speak now?
Whoops, I can hear you. Can you hear me? It says that it's
So she
going.
can hear us, but we can't hear her.
Let's see.
You'll be see Ben's here.
Yes.
Since your speaker's turned off. If we get kicked back, it'll be just a few minutes if you'll please be patient with us.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Gayla?
I can hear you.
You have the volume turned all the way down.
Because otherwise we get kicked back.
Oh.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I saw that.
Yeah, because you get two. We have to.
Gayla?
Yes.
Be sure this first.
There she is.
I hear you.
Maybe
do?
we have to turn
Okay.
that up.
Okay. Great.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, we're set to go, Chair Egg.
We're live.
We are live.
Okay. Call this hearing of the Archaeological Review Committee of December 7th, 2023 to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Chair Eck,
Present.
Vice Chair Pierce,
Present.
Member Bechtel.
Present.
Thank you, Member Wands. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have a quorum.
Thank you. First item to consider is approval of agenda. Staff, anything to add to this? No, Chair. All right.
Oh, can we change the agenda and move matters from the committee up to prior to approval of the minutes?
Chair Member Wands, we can do that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Just have to amend the agenda, and vote on an amended agenda.
So,
Was that a motion?
well, she made the request. It should be somebody else. like-
Oh. Mr. Chair, I move that we amend the agenda to move matters from the committee above approval of the.
After the approval.
Oh, after the-
Before the minutes.
before the meeting.
And if I could hear a second out there,
I can second that.
thank you. Moved and seconded, roll call vote, please.
Member Pierce,
Yes.
member Wands,
Yes.
member Bechtel.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Chair, members of the committee, I took a position with the state as a reviewer and I, checked with the state and they are okay. They don't consider it a, conflict of interest, but I wanted to make sure the city doesn't consider it a conflict of interest to be a reviewer for the state and a reviewer for the city.
Chair Member Wands, the city of Santa Fe doesn't believe that it's a conflict of interest, and we're happy to have you here. Thank you. Congratulations.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
that's good.
Congratulations.
Thank you for that. We did need it officially on the record. So having heard that, are there any other matters for the committee to consider at this point? Hearing none, we will move on to approval of minutes of October 5th, 2023. Which I thank you for the greatly reduced format.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I don't think we actually approved the agenda.
Yes, you did.
Did we?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. It's been a frantic day. I'm still catching up.
Thank you for keeping tabs, because
All right.
that's exactly the kind of thing I would forget. Oh, yeah. So, minutes, members of the committee. Hello.
I had no comment.
Okay, member Pierce,
I have no comment on the minutes.
member Bechtel.
No comment.
All right, we can consider a motion.
So
Have
moved.
any comments?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for the meeting of October 5th, 2022.
Motion,
Second.
second, roll call vote, please.
Member Wands.
Aye.
Member Bechtel,
Yes.
member Pierce.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Next item on the agenda is matters from the floor. We have a number of people in attendance. If anybody has a matter to raise, you'll have to be
Sworn.
identified and sworn in. Hearing none, we'll move on in the agenda. There are no items under old business. Moving on to item F, new business. Case number 2023-7484. Ron Winters, agent for Jung Hyun and Luella Knowles, owner, requests approval of a cultural resources survey of 2.859 acres for the proposed lot split of 1596 Canyon Road, that's lot 1B1, and 1600 Canyon Road, that's lot 1B2, in River and Trails Archaeological Review District. We have a staff report from Paul. Anything to add to that?
No, Chair.
All right. We have the presenter, identify, be sworn in.
Okay, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ron Winters, 109 Calle Paula, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87505.
Thank you.
Ron, you have the floor.
Okay, so just a couple comments. I discussed this before submitting with Paul concerning the acequia and a preservation easement on it. And he had a recommendation as to what they were comfortable with. And I, before submitting it, talked with the client who pushed back and said, there's already an easement on there. Why do we have to do this? I said, well, it's, it's required. I mean, and that's, it's necessary because especially with the recent incident with the safety that was destroyed. And so I submitted it as, with the original, with the original 12-foot width. But I did say, and which I always do, is has to have the number and the proper language, on the official plat. One other thing that I found out, which was a little disturbing, that when talking to a different city staff member, was that this lot split had been approved. Is that correct, without archaeological clearance?
Chair, Ron, I believe it has been, but this project is under further review.
Okay,
So it's going through additional further review with the Historic Districts Review Board and with current planning staff, zoning, and so forth. So this is gonna allow the project to move forward to the next phase.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I just wondered, how that had occurred. I mean, normally, I mean, in the
Right.
past, things slipped through the cracks, but it seemed like you guys are doing, and the different entities are doing a lot better about, notifying one another when archaeological clearance is required.
We're working on that. It's still
Okay,
abysmal, but we're working on that.
okay. So that's all I have to say.
All right. Committee members, Member Bechtel.
I just have one comment that's not content related, other than there was a paragraph on page 10, I think, that I finally gave up trying to make it make sense, just above the Pueblo period. It looks like there was a typo and I don't know what happened there, but that's all that I had. Otherwise, it's good.
Thank you, Member Bechtel. Noted, yes, the paragraph does not read as written, so there's in need of some editing.
Okay.
Member Watts,
Comment?
Member Pierce.
Just some clarification. So there is already an existing easement on the Sakia, and
Yes.
your proposal is somehow just to amend the language on the plat that goes with that to make it also a cultural preservation easement? Does that work administratively for the city?
Chair, Member Pierce, that's correct. We have an Acequia easement, and it provides through the Acequia Association, where cultural preservation easement will provide the archaeological, the cultural side.
So it's really amending the text of the plat and we're not creating something new per se.
No, sir.
And
Whatever works for you guys. Fine with it, yeah.
yeah, because you see the plat that
Yeah,
it shows the easement, but there is no language, which should be, on there.
that's all I had. Thank you.
Let me begin with the NIAF, which is the very first page of the packet, post memo. Box 7, there's a repeat of the word "the" in the last line of that box. Needs a little editing. Box 18. Specification of 3-meter parallel transects is in conflict with the text, which says 5-meter transects. First instance of the map showing the project parcels and showing the location of HCPI 54330. This is the last page of the NIAF section. There's discussion of the metal gate in the irrigation ditch. It does not appear on the map. It seems like a feature such as that would be important to call out in a map. And even more so as we get further on. So all of those maps should probably have some attention, but specifically the one for HCPI 54330. Page 8, last paragraph. Fourth line. The font on your printer or somebody's printer is not agreeing with the symbol for the degrees of temperature as given. Somehow needs to be fixed. With respect to member Bechtel's comment on page 10, the first sentence of the second paragraph is missing one or more words regarding archaic period sites, I believe. One word might fix it.
David, what was that reference? Give me
Page 10, second paragraph.
the second paragraph.
It begins with older, early, and middle archaic period are still relatively few.
Okay.
So something is few.
Sites of occupation.
Yeah. Page 24. Last line in table 2. Citation for LA 188002. I know you know where it is because you found it, but no one else knows where it is because it doesn't show up in the ARMS map server. And I'm wondering why something recorded in 2018 or thereabouts doesn't show up. Page 28, your research into ownership records would benefit from looking at the data in the Santa Fe Hydrographic Survey, which gives the names of the owners of tracts involved and could have given you a different lever for investigating prior ownership. Similarly, the 1911 version of the Hydrographic Survey could be very useful because there's at least one new name that appears in the 1977 version in the form of one Gershon, Gershen, was given as the tract owner for these parcels. Page 30, first line, 5 meter transects. Is it 5? Is it 3? They need to agree. Page 33, back to HCPI 54330. The description of this historic cultural property mentions the installation of a steel pipe with flexible plastic pipe attached. It's on the east side of the floodgate. Again, if we knew where the floodgate was, it would be easier to know where the pipe is. It refers to the location as it enters the property at the eastern boundary. So if it is indeed at the eastern boundary, that's important.
Yeah, I believe I did describe where it was, but it's not shown on the
Shown.
map, right?
And where it is important because there are several compuertas, field ditches that exit this ditch, one of which is the eastern boundary of your eastern parcel, and it is evident on the actual aerial photograph in the soil survey that you present. That field ditch could be mentioned, described, and I would think would be part of the property. even though it is a not constantly utilized feature related to the irrigation system. In searching for other things related to this, I note that the boundary between the two subparcels is also a location of a compuerta, at least intermittently. Most recently in, I believe, 2005. The plastic pipe you mentioned does wander around a lot through time. The illustrations in Google Earth are informative. It appears and disappears and it relocates its alignment several times. That might be helpful in interpreting all of this. Page 37, the references to the bayonet type opener and the band wide opener have years of use or existence cited, but there's actually no reference that I could see that ties that to a specific source of information, unless it is the ultimate citation at the very end of the discussion. But
Is that rock?
rock in
Yeah.
187. I noticed that the Office of State Engineer, while they did do the work in 1977, didn't get around to publishing volume 2 until 1978, as you indicate in your references cited, but in the text on page 40, you cite it as 1977, so it's 1 year off, apparently. Although you could be forgiven for the mess created by the state engineer. Same page, 40, third paragraph, second sentence, well, third sentence, refers to a 1988 survey. If that's a typo, it should be 1978. That would clear things up. Otherwise, there's more citation necessary. Same page, page 40, last paragraph, first sentence. Archaeological survey and the testing phase produced. No, you didn't do any testing. So that needs to be edited. And lastly, page 50, which is the map survey. You could, in your clear hand, actually add to that map a location for the site LA 188002, and then we don't want to do this. And that's all. So, someone want to craft a motion?
Sure.
Yes.
I have a question for you. Within this project area, this acequia could be impacted adversely with the proposed development of this land. And is it outside of the city to request a 10-meter buffer from the center line of that acequia? A city, that's my request for this acequia segment. The ground disturbance that they're looking at doing is quite intensive on this property. And I think to do best by that acequia would give it that 30-foot buffer, that 10-meter buffer. I don't know if it's outside the city to request that. I don't.
Our normal preservation easements are not that big.
Okay.
So I think, opinion, because I'm not the city attorney and never will be. I'll share that off. That would be overstepping to reach out that far, I believe.
Okay,
But you speak to knowledge that we do not have. A lot split is one thing. Development of these lots as a consequence of that split is another thing about which we know nothing. So they're talking about grading the whole thing, building condos or what?
Chair Eck, it would be extensive to the point where the acequia could be adversely impacted.
Yeah, there's 2 single family homes that are very large for that proposed case. And I would say that if we didn't have a significant buffer, that maybe we asked for them to have some sort of construction mediation or protection. I think that's perfectly within the authority of this committee to do if we can't get such a wide cultural properties preservation or acequia easements.
Given the size of these lots, doing a 30-foot either side effectively means there is no place to build anything bigger than an outhouse on those things.
Right.
Right.
So, yikes. But knock yourself out. If you want to pursue it, go for it, because that's not our purview. We're just trying to identify the resources in question. Sir.
My concern and something that I, having been on the ground is that there's a high berm, that's kind of steep that comes down and then it flattens out and where they're gonna build. And from this client, what I got was they're gonna build right up to that berm. And what you were concerned about, and I'm sure I was too, was, what's gonna protect that from, the berm from, collapsing or sloughing and
Right.
which then adversely affects the acequia.
Right.
Has anybody spoken to the Ditch Association or to our local guru of all things ditch related?
We were talking to Mr. Beauvais today earlier, but on different reasons. I think with this area and the owners and the developer, what they're proposing, if we could have some kind of, the buffer's great, but to have some kind of protection on when they're grading and blading and to prevent it. And we can request screening or some kind of stabilization methods for the acequia, or just some kind of
Retaining wall?
a retaining wall would be great, something. And I know I asked 10-meter buffer because I think that would do it right, but even with the 10-foot, 12-foot, that's great, but then request that it'd be screened and buffered with a retaining wall, something like that would be great.
Because it's quite steep.
Yes.
I
very
mean,
steep,
it just, and then juts up and any kind of disturbance at the base of that, I could see it destabilize, the acequia.
The acequia is perched on the top of this.
Exactly.
Right.
And then it drops down, and I think there's a second little minor drop between there and the street.
Yeah.
And it's that abrupt change in elevation that makes the field ditch, the compuesta, appear so clearly on the aerial photos, because it deeply in size, there's one heck of a shadow. And you can see it on all the aerial photos.
Well, one of the things, David, that has happened there, because of agricultural use, it's terraced.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's evident and very obvious, when you're out there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I mean, these are all very good ideas for mitigating the potential damage, but we're faced with approving or not approving what's presented to us tonight, right? And so if we feel that simply codifying the existing easement into a cultural preservation easement is not adequate to protect this site, then I don't think we can move forward with approving the case. I mean, it's not within our authority to require the measure that you're talking about, as cultural preservation, even as a voluntary thing, it has to be negotiated with the landowner.
And agreed to by the city,
Right.
because the city ends up being the holder of that easement.
Hmm.
Not us. So as presented, we have a dilemma. We have an identified historic cultural property that is only marginally protected by virtue of an easement held by others independent of the purview of this committee. And I agree. I don't see a way.
Yeah, so I could, for instance, hypothetically, propose that we postpone consideration of this case and request that the proponent consider either a wider cultural preservation easement or some sort of protective measures during construction like fencing. But that's about all that we can do at this point,
Okay.
I think. Does that seem reasonable?
I think it seems reasonable, and more extreme measures, I think, really have to involve the ditch association. What do they consider sufficient protection? Because 3 shovelfuls of dirt is not gonna do it.
Chair, my only thought is we need to make sure whatever the easement is reflected on the lot line adjustments. And then with the development permit, for instance, with the for the development on the site, the Historic Districts Review Board, we can place a condition as a comment from this committee about, preservation or, protection of the acequia during construction. So that might be a tool that you could use.
Let's stop using the phrase during construction. The acequia must be protected in perpetuity until such time as the ditch association says, we're done, the hell with it, we're gonna sell it all, and all the owners can buy it.
Hmm.
It exists, it must be protected in perpetuity.
Good point.
Plus, we have no idea when this construction will take place, and we have no details about what it entails. So,
Mm.
yeah, I don't think putting conditions on construction really makes a lot of sense until we know what that construction is.
Right.
So, and if there's no further back and forth discussion.
No, what I got from the client was it has an easement and they're gonna build right up to the edge of the, I mean, just verbal, and I got pushback, so,
Fair enough,
yeah,
that's his opinion. So thank you for those
yeah.
observations. If we do proceed as outlined, then you'll have ample time to doctor your report.
And, could the berm be considered part of the thicket?
Well, it really
The
is
ditch? I mean,
No.
so then it would be,
beyond the berm.
yeah,
Because one really can't exist without the other.
The-
That minimum
easement.
distance either side of the ditch, if one whole side of the ditch is held up by an embankment, the constructed item ends here, so that minimum distance is over there. And if that's 60 feet away, then everybody will be happy. Well,
So it's not from the center line, Chirac?
it's always been specified from the center line, but this is an engineering dilemma. If the ditch as it exists is only there because of all the earth that is on this downslope edge to Mother Earth, it's part of the ditch construction.
Sure. Yes, sir.
I don't care about where the water is, it's the ditch construction, but we don't know that. Again, we'd like to hear from people who do know, Novay, et cetera.
especially it may not work for the ditch, but as the archaeology easement, it would.
Hmm.
The other berm, of course, there's a berm on the upside, but it's much smaller, I mean, it really is held up by the one on the north side.
Okay.
Chair Eck, I wanted to communicate with Ron that if you need help with city staff and having a meeting on site with the applicant, we'd be happy to go out there and help you.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, after talking with Colin before I submitted, I did approach the client before and they were adamant that it hasn't, why did they have to do that anyway? And it hasn't, an easement already. I said, well, it did not identify properly on the plat, that has to be done.
Right.
But, no, it would be great, to have, they live in Berkeley, so I don't know how often they're here,
Or even a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I've never met them. It's all through their contractor.
Oh, it's to Doug McDowell?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can arrange something on site.
yeah. I was there the first day when they were out there and trying to assuage the neighbors that they were gonna do it, thoughtfully and, with respect to the neighbors on both sides. There's a lot of pushback, as you know,
Right.
on this project.
Right.
I don't wanna get caught in the crossfire.
No, indeed. And while we've been talking, my brain's been processing information, and I realized that one other thing that I noticed in your report that I didn't mention. It's on page 35. I think you illustrated the wrong portion or subpage or whatever, however this map is broken up. The 1925 portion of Santa Fe River Canyon by Edgar E. Smith. The portion illustrated doesn't cover the area in question.
I think isn't that a reference to the Assagia downstream and not referencing my portion in particular?
It speaks about the Asseca del Llano and refers specifically to this map to show its termination, but it doesn't show its termination because it's on the adjacent part of the map.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Not in terms of.
The map would be very useful. I just think the wrong piece of it ended up in the figure.
Got it.
So sorry about that. Much less since then. So,
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move that we postpone consideration of case 7484 until such time as the proponent has negotiated a federal protection for the resource and can come back with an altered plan.
motion.
Second.
Second, roll call vote.
Member Bechtel,
Yes.
member Pierce,
Yes.
member Wands,
Yes.
the motion has been approved.
Thank you. And thank you.
Yeah.
You can take the crosshairs off. now.
I was gonna say, I don't have a dog in the fight. Yeah.
Always fun to carry a torch for someone who's not here. Okay. Second item of new business, case number 20237486. NV5, agent for P&M Environmental Services requests approval of a cultural resources survey and monitoring report for the installation of approximately 2,175 feet of subsurface distribution and conduit line in the Alameda San Marcos neighborhood in the suburban archaeological review. Thank you for the staff report. Paul, anything to add?
No, Chair.
We have a presenter who will need to be identified and sworn in.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
name is Antonio DeCunzo. Address is 6200 Eubank Boulevard Northeast, apartment 1425, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Thank you.
Oh, you have the floor.
So P&M installed about 2175 feet of subsurface conduit line. Primarily installation was done via HDD boring. They excavated numerous splice pits with a variety of excavation equipment, including a very cute mini excavator. There was a lot of hand excavation in the people's backyards. And before the line was installed, I did a survey, encountered what I believe is an old railroad berm and is documented as such. And then during monitoring, the only thing encountered was that one crushed mission can, which had clogged the hydrovac thing. So, but that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Cool. Day members, number one.
I had, this is more persnickety. On page 18, your discussion of sites in the area is a little, I don't even know how to. Nah. Just while I was reading it, I was kind of like, wait, where, just maybe, separate the sites. And I think that was my biggest comment.
Member Bechtel,
I had no comment.
thank you. Member Pierce,
Yeah, just a couple of comments on your cartography. This would be on, I think it's page 2, your figure 1. The image showing the project location. So you've got an aerial photograph that zoomed in very tightly to your project area. And then an inset that just shows a dot on the state of New Mexico. I had a little trouble placing this in the city, right? So either an inset that shows a little more, some recognizable landmarks, or you could do aerial imagery that at least has the street names, right? So you can see where that is. And then my second question, which also relates to figure 1, is the blue line, is that the actual path of the door, or is it just outlining the general project area?
That was more or less the path that the conduit took.
Okay, fair enough. Then that's not, I think in a later case, it's the opposite, and I'll probably take them to task for it, but it wasn't clear here.
I mean, there's a few branches that each one of these houses got a little bit of new line, so there would be like a little stretch here and like, you know.
But it does represent
Yes.
the trunk of the line, not just a hypothetical boundary around it.
Right. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. That's all I had, thank you.
okay. Two things. I think only two things. One has to relate to cartography again. Results and monitoring map. Shows the location of profiles. This is on page 57, figure A3. It'd be too much to ask to have a figure A something further that shows the location of all the holes that actually did dig, so that we know for future where all the holes actually were dug, as opposed to there's only 5 locations where there have to be holes so that you could do a profile. But if there are more, it'd be nice to know where they are.
Yes, okay, I'll get those in.
And then this has to do with your illustrations of stratigraphy, starting on page 32 and then going forward. In the color photos, what you did kind of works, because when I'm not wearing my glasses, I can actually sort of see the color change. But it would really be helpful if on the photos, you would strike a white line in at the divisions between your identified strats and help the reader. That's it.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve case 7486 with the requested changes to the text. Or to the map.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Pierce,
Yes.
member Wands,
Yes.
member Bechtel.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And thank you for catching that railroad grade, because there's about that much of the berm in your project there.
It's much more evident, for outside the survey area, further north, and so you see it and then you kind of don't, and then I was like,
Yeah. But good catch. Laying down. Case number 2023-7487. OAS, agent for High Five, requests approval of an archaeological monitoring report for the installation of 820 feet of subsurface fiber optic line on Guadalupe Street, Olafria Street, and Romero Street in the historic downtown archaeological review district. We have a staff report. Thank you, Paul. Anything to add?
No, Chair.
We have a presenter, identify and swear in.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Karen Winning, 93 Apache Plume Drive, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Thank you.
Karen, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Chair. First I have, a sheet of corrections that I thought would be much easier to go through if someone had a visual. Please help. We got a handout 101. Okay. So I do have a number of corrections to this report. On the first page, first sentence of the second paragraph, the second sentence, it should say two were in the Romero Awa Fria. I just saw that. Fria should be added in there too. So I'll make that change. Page 23. Under NIMCRIS 16428, the last sentence should read a total of 0.13 acres were tested in advance. Page 26. Under NIMCRIS 120042, the last sentence says none of the sites documented during the project are within the 500-meter boundary, but it should say buffer of the current undertaking. Page 28, under LA 46174, the Big Joe site. The next to the last sentence reads, at the east end of the property sit, and should be sits. Page 34. The last sentence reads, the depot is currently being renovated by the city of Santa Fe, and that needs to be changed to the city of Santa Fe has recently completed renovation of the depot.
So we know exactly when you were sitting at your
Yeah,
keyboard.
right. Yeah. Page 47. Under the 1948 Sanborn map, the last sentence, or next to the last sentence, the reference to City of Santa Fe wastewater division should be, maps should be struck from that. Page 54. Under changes leading to the present, about 2/3 of the last paragraph, about 2/3 of the way down on the far right-hand side. But most of the tracks were taken up well before then in the 1960s. The next one is page 70. Which is under the stratigraphy section. First paragraph, fourth line from the bottom, on the far right-hand side. Construction debris was represented by 2 fist-sized cobbles smeared with patches of concrete bits and modern brick, all of which appear to derive instead of appears. So on 148, there are the captions, page 148, the captions in these 2 figures somehow got flipped. Here, let me get, actually, could I have one of those correction pages. Thanks, Bob. So, figure 9.5 should read glazed clay sewer pipe with a fragment of the W.S. Dickey Clay Manufacturing Company logo. The complete stamp copy from an online source is shown on the inset photograph. Then figure 9.6 should read 6-inch diameter vitrified sewer pipe joint fragment with joint compound adhesions. And then the last change is on page 111. About 1/3 of the way down, on the far left side, there's a reference to mudge. And somehow a paragraph got deleted from that in our editing process. And the full text is written on the correction sheet. It basically just goes into more detail about what would it be involved in bringing in Amari ware from whichever source this one came from over to New Mexico. And then at the end of that paragraph, same page 111, there's a missing period. And those are all the things I found.
Thank you for your very careful.
Thanks.
Committee members, Member Pierce.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I immediately noticed the field work was actually done in the fall of 2020. I'm not insensitive to the backlog that you all are dealing with, but 3 years is a long time to wait for a monitoring
Yes.
report. So
We have a series
let's
back
do
there.
better.
Yeah.
Let's see what else I do. I think there's only one other comment. I'm having a little trouble deciphering my own notes here, but I have the first line of your management recommendations on page 100. Where it starts with feature 1, LA 197-926, ACPI 1539. I have a flag with a comment that says, where is the actual recommendation? So
Okay.
I don't know if I missed it at the time or if it really is, it's not there. But
I think that is correct. Cause I went to the one.
oh, yeah, okay. So it's in the LA form, but not in the text.
Yeah.
Or on the- okay.
Yeah, you want me to add it into that?
So I think that would
Okay.
be good. Oh, yeah, right below I said there, I have LA form and appendix as eligible and recommends monitoring of future projects, right? Well,
Mhm.
first of all, it doesn't need to be in the text, and also, now that it's, 3 years later,
Mhm.
how do we know that other projects haven't already happened?
Okay, yeah,
Right?
yeah. Okay,
Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
okay. I'll make those corrections.
Number 1.
You got that, so that's taken care of. So my only comment is you guys did amazing work on this for monitoring. This is probably some of the most detailed work graphs since I've been on this committee.
Thanks, really appreciate it.
Yes, I'll echo that sentiment. It is probably the most comprehensive monitoring report yet seen in the Soundwave. Member Bechtel.
Honey, I had the same comment that it was so thorough. I really appreciated it. So thank you. Otherwise, I didn't
Thank
have
you.
comments. Yeah,
Thank you so much, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gayla.
Yosekia was incredibly exciting when we got the dates back.
Oh, I bet.
Oh my God, I'm still happy about it.
Well, you should be.
Yep.
Just keep smiling. But I did want to ask one question about the profiles of that
Okay,
feature. Pages 89 and 90. The photograph on the left-hand side and the drawing on the right-hand side. I can see some minor variation, which I don't necessarily care about a great deal. I just wanted to verify that the minor variations are simply a difference in interpretation and illustration, not anything substantive.
Yeah, and this could be, um, for me, an absence of not checking the figure, clearly enough, well enough. So were there particular discrepancies that you noticed?
Well, for instance, the bottom of the deposit labeled as strata 1 and 2 redeposited has a rather straight
Mhm,
depiction in the photograph,
mhm,
and yet has a marked upward shift in the drawing, where it comes to the detail of the shift in balance between a general 1 and 2 mixed and a 1 and 2 mixed, but more 2.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
the
Yeah,
line seems to deviate.
it does. I think part of this is, and this was frustrating for me, is the angle of the photograph.
Yeah.
But let me take a closer look at the photograph and see if I can resolve those, maybe with a different scale on the figure, on the profile figure.
Whatever works, and don't change
Yeah.
a thing if it turns out that it's all taken care of. I'm
Okay.
just saying, I noticed this and.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did notice that actually, and I figured, just photograph angle, is difficult to account for sometimes, you're
Yeah.
got a skinny little trench and,
And the unfortunate shadow edge.
yes,
The glare of the
Yes.
sun versus the deep shade.
yes.
Sorry.
I thank you for all of the wonderful illustrations showing the known and projected alignments of this ditch.
That was the most fun part.
Awesome,
Thanks. Thanks.
just absolutely awesome.
And
And-
especially exciting to be able to talk about Dave Snow's work with that, because that is what he had thought was happening with that ditch. So the fact that we could pull it out that far was just way cool, yeah.
Those illustrations are important reference material, and in terms of acequias, known alignments and whether people are gonna encounter them in future projects, somehow or other, can the city make this here?
Yeah.
This is important. Be
Yeah.
aware of the fact that you may very well intersect this ditch,
Yes.
because I can name 30 people who would be oblivious to the existence of this ditch, because they probably won't read this report.
It's also an incentive for us to get it uploaded to our website as quickly as possible too. Chris.
Okay, so that's all. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve case 7487 with the requested corrections to the text.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Juan?
Aye.
Member Bechtel?
Yes.
Member Pierce?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Can't read yet. In fact, you can't read, so. Case number 20237488. OAS, agent for the City of Santa Fe Public Works Department, requests approval of an archaeological monitoring plan for the installation of approximately 150 feet of subsurface gas line at 410 Guadalupe Street in the historic downtown archaeological review district. Thank you for the staff report, Paul. Anything to add?
No, Chair.
Thank you, Karen. You're still sworn in. It's your floor.
Okay, thank you, Chair Egg. I just have a few corrections for this one, and they're also listed on the sheet I handed out. The first one is on page 17. Under the collected NIMCRIS numbers for the Santa Fe rail yard. the very last sentence, I double checked on November 2nd to make sure that the shape files were still not there. The site numbers are, the site shape files are uploaded, but not the activity shape files. On page 19, LA 146404, second to the last. Just the reference in there, Badner et al. Should have a period after all. And the last one is on page 26, which, the last sentence should read, this triangulation places the project lot within the agricultural fields, suggesting that remnants of field strata are possible in excavated profiles if subsequent commercial and railroad related activities have not eradicated evidence. And those are the ones I found for this one.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Member Beckle.
I didn't have any comments on this one either. Looks good.
Thank you, Galen. Number one,
No comment, just in terms of NIMCRIS, you won't see the testing or data recovery in there because it's survey. So that's why it's so important people upload their site shape files,
Okay,
because for especially downtown Santa Fe, if you hit a site, the only way we know is the only way we can even see work in NIMCRIS is if that site shape file is uploaded,
yeah,
even if it's only in the trench that you found it in.
okay. Let me see if I can have some effect on that happening.
break it loose.
Yeah.
That was my only comment.
All right, member Pierce.
I don't have any comments.
I've only one. Page 36. Beautiful picture of a beautiful depot. I agree, we're looking east. But I can't agree that the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad tracks are in front of the building. Because they're on the other side. of
That's
the
right.
small-
I will remove that promptly.
It's the Atchison Peak. Principle.
Yep, yep.
All right. That's all.
Thank you.
Motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve case 7488 with the one requested correction to the figure. Or, yeah.
Would that include her corrections that she referenced as well?
It would, please. You can clean up my office.
In fact, she probably already has. Digital version.
Yeah, yeah.
Moved and seconded, roll call vote, please.
Member Bechtel,
Yes.
Member Pierce,
Yes.
Member Wong.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
need to sit down for a bit.
Okay, cool.
Sit back for a bit.
Sit back.
Fifth case. 2023-7491. Trauma Environmental Research and Consulting LLC agent from Philip.
Jesuit.
Request approval of an archaeological monitoring plan for the installation of approximately 2,220 feet of subsurface electrical line at 1,600 St. Michael's Drive in the Suburban Archaeological Review District. Thank you for the staff report. Paul, anything to add?
No, Chair.
Thank you. We have presenter, identify and swear in.
Okay, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the
My
record.
name is Brenda Belletti and my address is 829 West Manhattan, Santa Fe. Thank you, everyone. And my two colleagues are on Zoom, Veronica Bashevsky and Hollis Lawrence. And the client is here, Philip.
You are well represented.
Yeah.
So are you gonna do the talking?
Yeah, I mean, the item number really says it all. We are seeking approval for a monitoring plan for 2,220 feet of new buried electrical cable loop at 1,600 St. Michael's Drive.
In a nutshell.
in a
That's it.
nutshell. Yeah,
Okay,
and I'm here to take any comments or concerns that you have about the report. About the
All right.
proposal.
committee members, member Bechtel.
The comments I have on this one are that there was very little historical reference to the Bruns Army Hospital that used to be on this site. And the Bruns Army Hospital occupied this whole area. So there was something down there. I just don't know what it was. I'd have to go back and look at the site plan, but I believe that the next case actually has a site plan from the Bruns. So you might take a look at those because you could find out what you're going to see, or you might possibly see. Thank you.
Thank you, Gayla. Number one.
I agree with what, Member Bechtel said, other than that,
Member Pierce.
As monitoring plans go, it is a little sparse, but other than the history of the Bruns Hospital, I think it covers all the bases. The only thing I would comment on, and this is on page 16, is I think the sixth, beginning of the sixth line, it says examination of other historic topographic map and aerial imagery indicates that St. Michael's Drive wasn't established in its current configuration until the interval between 1952 and 1961. If you have seen those historic maps, it would be nice if we could too.
Okay.
So if you can reproduce them in the monitoring report, that would be a good addition. That's all I have.
Thank you. I won't add anything to it. I will just definitely request more information about rooms and maybe to the extent of embellishing your discussion with a paragraph on expectations derived from all of that prior knowledge. Granted, you may not hit anything, but knowing what to expect is just a good thing to demonstrate.
Okay.
That's all. Motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve case 7491.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Pierce,
Yes.
member Wands,
Yes.
member Bechtel.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're off the hook. Sixth item of new business. Case number 2023-7609. OAS, agent for Cablecom LLC, on behalf of Comcast Midwest Division, requests approval of an archaeological monitoring plan for the installation of approximately 200 feet of subsurface conduit on Guadalupe Street and Reed Street in the historic downtown archaeological review district. Thank you for the staff report. Paul, anything to add?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Karen, still sworn in, still here?
Thank you, Chair. I just have one correction for this plan, on page 23. Under SR 827, the last sentence, I just changed it to, I put the depot's recently remodeled and restored is more accurate, for that. So that's the only, change I found for this one.
Thank you. Yes, I think SDRB might quibble about
Yeah.
remodeling.
Mhm.
They may do more than quibble. Committee member, member Pierce,
I have no comment.
member one,
Oh, no comment.
no comment. Member Bechtel,
Me either. No comment.
and me, no comment. I thank you. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve case 7609, with the one correction brought by the app.
Second motion?
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Wands,
Yes.
member Bechtel,
Yes.
Member Pierce.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Case number 2023-7610. OAS, agent for the City of Santa Fe Water Division, requests approval of an archaeological monitoring plan for the installation of approximately 600 feet of subsurface water service and fire line connections. That's a correction to what I said. They're connections at 1600 St. Michael's Drive in the Suburban Archaeological Review District. Thank you for the staff report. Paul, anything to add?
No, Chair.
Yeah, you have the floor, Karen, and if you want to speak, I guess, does he need to get sworn in too?
You're a staff.
I'm a city
person.
employee.
So do we need to, I don't think we need to.
I think we established that I don't need to be
Yeah,
sworn in.
because you're a city employee.
Yeah, I'm a city employee, so.
So go for it, Karen, and
Okay, I do have a list of corrections for my connections, if you'd like to hear them. On,
nice gig.
yeah. Well, Joey Bishop for you guys. On page 1 of the report, under physical environment and historical background, about 2/3 of the way down the page, there's a reference to Lakatos 2011A, and there are no other Lakatoses, so we need to strike the A. Well, there's also a problem with the page numbers starting on that page. It says page 3, and that's clearly page 1 of the, and so that continues through the entirety of the report. I will correct that. Okay, on page 19, the actual listed page 19 of the report, even though that's the wrong page. Under the Bruns Army Hospital, there's a reference to Shub, Johnson, and Bremer 2001, and that reference does not show up in the cited works at the end. Okay, on to page 20, under Arroyos and Acequias in the project vicinity, there is a call out in the 3rd line for figure X, and that should be figure 7. A little further down, the 2 last sentences of that same paragraph on page 20, it references the 2 Hartman maps, and that should actually say the 2 William White maps, I believe. And it says figures 9 and 10, and then also again in the second sentence there. And those actually need to be figures 10 and 11 that are called out. Let's see. On report page 21 is listed in the report erroneously. The second line references figure 7, and that should actually be figure 8. And the last one on page 24, under historic land grants, there's a reference to Bowden 1969, and that also does not appear in the works cited at the end. Again, in that same paragraph, that first paragraph, it calls out figures 9 and 10, and it actually needs to be figures 10 and 11. And I apologize for that is all I have. Cool.
tell you have been an understudy medicine before.
I like to think that I went well.
You got the best coach there.
I cannot thank her enough, I can promise you.
That's right.
Your Christmas cookies will come soon.
Many years ago, we put quietus on treats brought to meetings.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was inappropriate. Otherwise, there would be a pile. I know to bring it up for the whole lot.
That must have been many years ago. I don't remember.
That was
Can we put that on matters for the committee?
just before my silly agreement to serve.
Gave up all those free cookies. What were you thinking?
Yep. All right. Thank you for all those corrections. Committee members, member one,
No comment.
member Bechtel,
No comment. Looks good. Thank you.
and member Pierce.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. This first one has to do with, page 6, with figure 2. That's sort of a macro representation of the whole campus, essentially. And the only other thing that details where the work is the engineering drawings, which are very, very micro. I had a hard time figuring out where exactly on the campus this work is taking place. So something in between those two extremes would probably be helpful.
Sure. Would you consider maybe highlighting the work on the engineering drawing?
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, well, bear in mind that the copies that we get are, third, fourth generation. Sometimes
Right.
details get a little blurred, so.
I'll try to
The
do,
digital version was reasonably legible.
Yeah.
okay. I will figure
Highlighting
out,
is always a good thing.
I will figure out a way in either figure 2 or figure 4 to represent that better for you.
And the only other thing I had, was just sort of an informational item on, see, this is on page 19. Your reference to LA 191876. This report might have been produced before all this happened, but since I jog by there every weekend, I happen to know that 191876 has been pretty much destroyed.
Yeah.
It's bladed, bulldozed. I haven't gone out there with boots and hard hat to verify that everything's gone, but it's pretty obvious that most of it is.
And
So the next time you reference that site might be worthwhile to mention that that site was removed, destroyed, whatever you want to call it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing to add. So motion,
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve case 7610, with the requested, clarifications of the figures
and the corrections offered.
and corrections offered. Thank you.
I second.
Moved and seconded, roll call vote, please.
Member Bechtel,
Yes.
member Pierce,
Yes.
member Wand.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great, thank you guys.
Next item on the agenda. As a case 2023-7504. The 2024 ARC hearing calendar. Thank you, staff, for putting this together. Any need to expostulate?
Just to remind the Archaeological Review Committee that we've moved the dates to the third or fourth week.
I think it's the fourth week.
The fourth week, yeah. So that there's no conflicts with the planning commission, so people will be finishing their months with us instead of beginning their months. So, and hopefully that is fine with the Archaeological Review Committee. No, if you're approving the calendar, I'm sure it's fine.
Committee, any discussion? Member Bechtel?
The discussion about the calendar? Or
Yeah.
just,
If everything's fine, you don't
Everything-
need to discuss.
okay,
Number one,
I have no comment. I'm good.
Member Pierce?
Now, the only thing that stands out to me is that the last meeting on December the 19th, that's getting awfully close to Christmas. So I make no guarantees.
Okay.
If I have travel plans, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
Totally, yeah.
And I
But
promise I won't start my birthday early. So, yeah, no problem there either.
Okay.
So motion,
Oh, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the hearing schedule for 2024.
I second motion.
moved and seconded, roll call vote, please.
Member Pierce,
Yes.
member Wand,
Yes.
member Bechtel.
yes.
Thank you. The motion has been approved.
Thank you all. Administrative matters and communications, just why everybody else is here.
Oh, sure.
Just one thing, Chair Eck, that I would like to do is introduce you to Rebecca Klauser. She is the planning tech and is part of the historic preservation team. And she's really jumped in and taken charge of a lot of things for which we're grateful. She comes to us from York, Pennsylvania, and has a very interesting background and is learning all about archaeology and historic preservation. Trial by fire, I suppose. So she has a planning background.
Can you cut her loose for a week and put her to work in a cemetery? To learn about archaeology from the ground up.
Yeah, that's
Purpose
right.
now. Well,
Thank you.
glad to have
So are we.
you. You sigh of relief. You can go back to doing just 2 jobs instead of 3.
Yeah.
2.5. So you brought something for us as an administrative matter and communication.
Yes, Chair Ack.
What do you have to say?
Well, Chair Ack, we're working with Jenkins Gavin and Lisa Gavioli is here in representing Jenkins Gavin with Robert Cordero. And they're doing the Section 106 process. And we're presenting this as an informational item to the ARC committee for review. So you will have an idea of what's taking place in the community and to give comment where you see fit, just as a courtesy on behalf of Jenkins Gavin and SWCA.
So I'm probably gonna recuse myself on this one.
What's informational? I don't.
It's information.
Okay, then.
We're not gonna vote on anything.
Okay.
But if you wanna just sit quietly.
I
you
can sit
do-
quietly.
Okay. Thank you. Committee members, have you read and considered this in its context? Member Pierce?
I have not read the whole thing. However, I am going to rant a bit. I realize that as the way that the code is written, that this does qualify for an exemption in this hearing. However, the reason that it's exempt is because it got money from the federal government, right?
Yes.
For 37-2106. But while a $750,000 grant looks impressive, that's actually less than 2% of the project budget. So because the feds gave them 2% of the budget, we're cut out of the loop. That doesn't sit well. And what really doesn't sit well means it could have been $20 and we would still be cut out of the consultation.
Right.
So I don't like the way the code is written. And I know that the city is gathering in comments on what to do, improvements to the code. My comment would be strike this provision. There's no reason to cede your authority to this feds.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, I just don't like that we don't have a role in this because they got less than 2% of the funding through the federal government. And I'm not happy about it. So that's my comment.
Excuse me, Chair Eck, I need to swear in who's ever gonna speak about for the planning commission. So
Okay.
are you gonna speak as well?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll swear both of you. You haven't been sworn in, have you?
Second.
Okay, so do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimonies you're about to give are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, and when you speak, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
I want to make you wait just a bit. Anything else? Mitch?
No.
Okay. Member Beck?
I'm not really sure what kind of comments you're seeking.
Well, this matter came to us by what I will refer to as the side door. The sequence of events is, in my mind at least, as yet undefined. We will ask questions and hope to learn the sequence of events. And the jurisdictional matter Member Pierce has raised is a serious one. We've had this before in numerous cases involving federal funds and agencies that decided to talk to us or not, to talk to the city or not, to talk to historic preservation along with us or not. And so the situation as we have it is one in which there has apparently been some consultation, but as far as we can tell, the city had no part in any of that consultation. As far as we can tell, if the facts of the matter are other than that, we will learn perhaps. But it's serious because, as Member Pierce has pointed out, the ordinance basically throws up its hands and says, oh gee, if it's federal, we're not gonna do anything. And that's absolutely not what should happen. We have jurisdiction, we will always have jurisdiction, the city always has purview, the city always has involvement, and should always be included in appropriate consultations. I do not wish to be representing the city in consultations. What I do need is something from the city that says it was appropriately consulted and talked to Historic Preservation Division, State of New Mexico, and talked to the federal lead agency, and has agreed to X, Y, and Z. That's how actual consultation proceeds. What we have is the stage door. So I will shut up at this point and
So I have a question then. So the features that were identified by OAS during the testing that are listed on page 321, will we hear more about them, or is this all we hear from the archaeology that they've done for their trenches?
Member Bechtel, we'll hear more about them in the final report, but it won't be a final report that we'll have any purview over at present because nobody intends to involve us in review of the final report.
Okay.
Therefore, City of Santa Fe archaeology will be dealt with by others outside of the city's normal way of operating. That's why we're concerned.
Got it. Thank you for that explanation. I have no more comments.
Okay, and a couple of questions I'll ask a little later might help to clarify some of this. If you need to ask more questions, feel free, and you'll have to wave your hand because I can't see the screen because I can't wear my glasses or I'm going to become physically ill looking at all this paper. So long prescription, you see. So we have our other member choosing not to speak to the matter. So I guess it's my turn. I've been waiting to hear about this for years. I walk by that lot at least once a week, every week, and would just dearly love to go snoop around when I saw open trenches. And I wondered, gee, who's doing that? And I wonder, does the city know who's doing that? And how are they doing that? And is there a plan in place to govern how they are doing that? I never heard the other shoe drop. The pavement got fixed. Life went on and nothing happened. Normally, when testing happens in the city of Santa Fe, we see a testing report. We never saw anything. As far as I know at this point, the city never saw anything. Therefore, testing occurred without benefit of city input, city oversight, involvement of committee, and where are the results? I looked in the record and I can tell that somebody did something, but I can't see anything because there's nothing uploaded. There's nothing, literally almost nothing in the orange record. I know where a report resides, and I might ask a question here in a little bit in case somebody knows something about that report. But really, come on. Testing happened. A report was generated. Who did it get delivered to? As far as I know, it did not get delivered to the city. As far as I know, it did not get delivered to Historic Preservation State of New Mexico. Where did it go? Who did what with it? Who made any decisions about what should happen next? That's why we're concerned. We basically don't know much. So at this point, a guest raised a hand. Identify yourself before you speak, and you can speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'll defer to Robin Cordero.
Hi, Robin Cordero with SWCA. What other information do you need?
Address, please.
Oh, address, 7770 Jefferson Street, Northeast Albuquerque. So SWCA has taken over the project from OAS in terms of being in the process of the data recovery and carrying through the Section 106 process. There is a final report on the testing that was done. It was provided, I don't know the exact date, within the last month to the city. You were emailed a copy of the report.
Believe so.
So it has been provided to the city. It was finalized, I want to say in October, or September, and it finalized in September. And we submitted it, or actually Jenkins Gavin submitted it to the city. So that's where the final report currently resides for the testing. Before I continue, do you have any questions regarding?
Why was it submitted to the city?
I would like to answer that question. if I
Name and
could.
address.
My name is Lisa Gavioli with Jenkins Gavin, address 130 Grant Avenue. Chair Eck, members of the committee. Jenkins Gavin was just brought onto the project over the summer. I've been working on the project since August. As far as I understand it, the report has been requested from OAS for about a year and a half before they received anything at all. That I believe has everything to do with the change in leadership at OAS and the chaos that ensued after that. The museum is obviously not pleased with that. As far as I understand it, that report has been submitted to the SHPO as part of the Section 106 process. I submitted it to the city in the hopes of it being distributed to the committee. And just to be very clear, the city of Santa Fe is a consulting party to the Section 106 process. They have not been cut out of the consultation process in the slightest, that I'm aware of. And the city of Santa Fe has agreed to be a signatory on the MOA that will be prepared for the project. So every comment that you provide this evening, any written comment that you want to follow up with, that will all be taken into consideration, very serious consideration by the Section 106 reviewers, by the museum. We take consultation very seriously and are adhering to the Section 106 process as we very best can, given the complications that have taken place to date.
Thank you. That helps clarify a lot.
And
Yeah,
if I can just expand on that, following receipt of the OAS testing report in September, the NEH proceeded with a finding of adverse effect in October and went through that process. And so now a letter just went out.
I think it's gonna go out tomorrow.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
going out tomorrow in notifying all of the consulting parties that they are initiating the Section 106 process. And that will include the city of Santa Fe.
And that letter that will go out will also include this draft treatment plan that's before you, inviting consultation from the consulting parties, as well as the draft MOA that is now in sort of first draft form.
okay. Well, let me make it clear up front that the applicant has done nothing wrong here, right? The loophole is right here in black and white. You can't fault them for walking through it. However, that loophole should be closed. It's a mistake to punt your authority to the SHPO and the feds. While the SHPO is a governor appointee, right? I'll have every confidence in this SHPO. There's no reason to suspect that I'll have the same confidence when there's another governor and a different SHPO, right? Next time we have one of these scenarios, we get burned, right? We're cut out of the loop. We don't even see what's going on.
Right.
That's my comment. Get rid of it.
Right.
I second that. And I think consensus opinion, since we're not voting on it, would probably agree. Anything else?
I think that sums it up.
Have you seen correspondence regarding this section 106 matter?
Chair Eck, we received the NEPA document from, what was it?
The determination of adverse effect for section
Right.
106.
We did receive that from the federal government. And we've been in consultation with Jenkins Gavin since the duration of this. Since I've been here, throughout as this is taking place. Jenkins Gavin has been sharing with us everything that's taking place out there, keeping us in the loop with their contractor, and just kind of talking us through their steps as they move forward through the process. We requested that, they share the data recovery plan with the ARC and whatever information. And the OAS report, I'll get that to you by tomorrow. And I'll share that with all ARC members. That was not in this, and it should have been, and that's my fault. And I'll make sure next time it's in there. But yeah, we as city, we're kind of a consulting party in this, that Jenkins Gavin is sharing with us what's taking place. And then we're sharing it with you. And that's kind of as far as it goes on our end.
But ultimately, the only authority you have is to provide comments, just like a member of the public. That's about the limit of anyone's authority at this table, right?
I think
Because again, of this exemption, which.
I think for the city, we have the permitting. The permitting
yeah.
aspect. So they can't do any construction without the city approval through the permitting process. And in that regard, all documentation has to be submitted through the city for review. And if it's archaeological or cultural, we will present that to the ARC.
But again, informational, not.
As an
case,
information,
right?
because of the section 106
Well,
process.
I would like to also suggest though that the ARC and the city of Santa Fe are not just any member of the public. They are a signatory party on the MOA. They are a consulting party. They have privileged status in that consultation in the section 106 review process.
Yeah, but what does that actually mean to us? It doesn't give us any opportunity to interpret and apply the city code. All we can do is provide comment with the Fed are free to ignore.
I don't believe that the SHPO or the NEH has any intention to ignore your comments.
I don't mean to pick on this case, right?
No, I know. I'm just trying. I'm
You guys are
just
doing-
speaking generally.
You're wonderful, even for being here. There's no reason you have to be here or provide us anything, and you have, which is great. But in the future,
Right.
The next time things roll around and maybe we have a different SHPO, I'm not comfortable with that, right?
Right.
I mean, we should be interpreting the city code for a city property, right? Whatever the Fed want to do on top of that, they're welcome to, but bypassing us entirely because, again, of this loophole in the code, it just makes me queasy. Right.
Chair Eck, Member Pierce, I might suggest that this might be a change with the phase 1 changes to the city code, the code hygiene. And then we can get to the more substantive changes that you all have talked about in the past as part of the phase 2. But there might be some things we could advance faster. So if you have any other suggestions, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. To be frank, my concern is that, 4 or 5, 10 years down the road, you might get federal authorities and a SHPO who are build, baby, build. And that's all they care about, right? And they give lip service to the section 106 process and that's all that happens. And I don't want to see that happen, right? I want the city to take its bite of the apple. And here we're just giving it away.
And the bite needs to be taken at the appropriate time. So you'll get my reference here. This is not bullying, but I must know when the NEH declared this a federal undertaking. And I know that only in the form of a letter from the NEH that says this is a federal undertaking. A letter that has a date on it.
The other thing I would point out is that because of the way that section 106 happens, any federal agency can serve as section 106 reviewer, right? Not all of them have equal capacity. This is not the BLM or the Forest Service. NEH probably can handle it, but there are many federal agencies out there that have no business in the consultation process. They wouldn't begin to understand it. So again, giving away our authority to review this case or cases like it in the future is, in my opinion, a mistake that needs to be remedied.
Yes. So there should be a file, a paper trail that says on this date, somebody made this decision. And they made that decision in consultation with who, what, when, where, why, and how.
If city staff does not have those records, at their disposal, I would be happy to provide them. I have seen evidence that the letters were sent to the city of Santa Fe over the last 3 years. And so I have all of those letters, so I can send them.
I guess I would add too that if and until we can change the code, if another case like this should appear, at least give us the courtesy of letting us know that it's been taken out of our hands. Right, when that decision is made, not 3 years later when it's halfway through the project.
Okay. You guys may not have known. And if correspondence is provided, then maybe for the first time you will know, and then we will know. But if you get such correspondence, we need to know that. And if something happens this week that Park Service has decided something, and this is not bullying, but that needs to be shared immediately, not later when a certain city staffer decides that it's convenient to share it. Is the microphone on? Because he did the city a vast disservice. And y'all are gonna be biting that bullet for the rest of your careers. Everybody's gonna question, when did you know it? How did you know it? And why didn't you share it? So I'm just saying, cover your bets and tell us what you know, when you know it. Yes.
So Chair, just to make sure I have this right, that means when we get a letter, we should immediately send it to the Archaeological Review Committee or part of the packet?
Bring it as an informational thing.
Okay,
It's
great.
It's appropriate. And the timing of the sharing as part of the packet, or hey, this is going to appear as an informational item, I'll leave it up to you, but that's appropriate communication. It's timely. And finding out about something almost 3 years after apparently somebody decided something is not timely. So we have this. And I didn't read it all either, but so far it looks pretty damn good. But literally all the questions that are raised is, what does the testing report say? So now I'm going to prevail upon a long-suffering staffer of said agency and say, do you have any clue when this was first discussed and when it actually happened?
I heard that it was federalized maybe a few months ago. I know that the plan has been submitted to SHPO. I don't know exactly when they approved it.
So that would imply that while you were actually doing the work, you were also under the impression that it coming before the ERC. Is that fair to say?
Well, I wasn't involved in this project much except to do,
Don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah. In fact, I really wasn't. I did the groundstone analysis and that was pretty much it. I do think that, the federalization did not, the field work was complete. And the federalization, that's my understanding. I hope I'm right.
Okay, city staff. If the field work for testing was conducted prior to federalization, it was conducted under the purview of the ARC. Nothing goes forward until we review that. It has to come to us, because it was done under an understanding that is other than
This,
we have now, and we'll get to the details. I need to know the details. That's why I asked the date. I need to know all this. I need to see the documentation. We need to see the documentation. The city needs to see the documentation.
We understand.
it has been a federal undertaking since 2020.
I guess that gets back to
Unequivocally.
Sheriff's comments of, okay, well, who knew that and when?
The
Right?
consulting parties were all mailed notification.
The city would have been a consulting party.
The city staff has only been, the only information we have received is the NEH form from Ann Peason within the last 6 weeks.
That's been the
Oh,
only,
still
That's the
recent
only communication.
Because again, we've been waiting for the testing report for any Northern this time.
So there's a lot to settle here.
Yeah.
If I may, introduce somebody else to speak, Jen Foley with the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, who might be able to clarify some things.
She has not been
You have
sworn
to be
in.
sworn, yeah.
No.
Just state your name and your address.
I'm happy to.
Yeah, please, state your name and your address.
Sure. It's Jennifer Foley, 217 Johnson Street.
Thank you.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing? I can't remember what it is. Thank you.
So I don't know that I have a lot of clarifying, but just wanted to note, the process did start for us in 2020. It is the result of being the recipient of a federal grant, which automatically puts you under section 106. There was a period in which, because that happened in 2020, which was a rather momentous year, I think, for all of us, there was definitely a period of dormancy. We did send out notifications, but I think we did not, there wasn't a lot of action for a little bit because of the pandemic. So there was a sort of pause where nothing was really happening beyond the sort of initial work. And then we engaged OAS to start doing the testing as the sort of first step on that. And that happened, I believe that started in 2021.
Okay, that helps. So, to your knowledge, it's always been federal. To our knowledge, it happened 6 months ago. To your hearsay,
Yeah.
it was recent.
It sounds like, yeah, I stand corrected.
So this is why documentation and communication is hypercritical. Because if the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing, but somebody somewhere talked to somebody somewhere else and said consultation occurred, I cry foul, because somebody who's knowledgeable has to be involved in the consultation. And the only knowledgeable people I know of are you two, right there. And you now. Welcome, welcome to the prime. We don't do consultation. But we are charged with defending the archaeological resources of the city of Santa Fe. And it hasn't happened. This is not right. This is second rate. This is not the way to do things. It might be perfect. It might be the perfect plan. We may learn everything we need to learn, but we didn't get there by the right path.
Right.
And Jared, we will come back next time with the testing, what is that called?
The testing report.
This testing report, and we can go through that and then maybe put this off until we've had the opportunity to work through all of the issues as well as the testing report.
Yeah. That will all help, and we'll figure out how to make silk purses out of sow's ears.
And Chair, I would like to request of the applicant the list of the consulting parties. I requested that a while back and I haven't received it, but it was of Daniel Hernandez. And I don't think he's involved with the project
No,
anymore.
he's not, and I wasn't aware of that. But study to provide you that list.
Great, thank you.
And I'll provide you all of the records that we have too.
Thank you.
Correct. And and if this is okay with Jenkins Gavin, that we move, the testing report at 123 Grant Avenue as in January for ARC review. But
Sure.
would that,
It's not for our review.
Yeah,
No,
It's an
not-
informational item.
but for,
Unless we can establish that the work that was done under the purview of ARC, under city approval as working in the downtown historic district, blah, blah, blah.
okay,
Is there no involvement of other parties in producing that report? i.e., is there a cultural properties review committee permit for mechanical excavation associated with the testing that was done on this property? We need to know that, because if it didn't exist, the testing had to have been done under the city's purview, because there's only two ways to stick a backhoe in the ground around here.
right.
One is under ARC, the other is under the CPRC mechanical testing permit. That's it. We need to know which one it is.
The appropriate CPRC permits were issued for the testing.
Good.
It was undertaken as a federal project.
So it's federally funded, the OAS project?
Well, the whole undertaking is considered to be federal because of the federal grant.
That's good.
that
But
was
that gets back to
awarded.
my original point. I mean, she is correct. That is how the code reads, but I mean, this is really stretching it. It's less than 2% of the budget, right? I mean, the feds are not paying for this project. They're just chipping in pennies. And yet still, because of the way that the code is written, we're cut out of the loop.
Chair, if a private outfit would have paid OAS to do this project and in behoove that it was gonna be part of the Section 106 process, but not currently under the federal Section 106 process, then it would have to go to the ARC for review.
If the chain of events is as you alluded,
Okay,
if there's no known federal involvement and somebody pays somebody within the city of Santa Fe to do mechanical testing, it has to be under our purview. Otherwise, it is a violation of state statute. So we hear that state permits were issued. Great. I looked for them. The records that I have access to don't go back far enough, apparently, because I saw nothing whatsoever in the CPRC files that related to this. But they cut off probably before the work actually started. So it's probably a 2020 application, and I can't get back that far because they don't maintain those digitally prior to 2021.
staff will look for this on our end.
So we need to know all these things. Taking it on faith gets me nothing. I took a lot of stuff on faith all my life. I'm not doing it again.
Well, if I may, in that regard, there is an informational item that we are requesting the ARC's concurrence on. During while SWCA was evaluating the design of this project, if you look on page 1-5, this is the APE as identified or as defined by the SHPO and NEH as agreed upon. And you'll notice that it is confined to just the 123 and 135 Grant Avenue properties. However, there is a city alley on the south side of that property. And if you look to page 6-60, there is a city alley. There are utilities that will require movement, being moved off of the existing building that's slated for demolition. And it will need to be moved through the alley. I have for you an email from the SHPO that states that they do not, and this was submitted to the city within the last 2 weeks. I think it was last week. Is that right, Paul?
I believe last week.
Okay, last week. Yeah. And I will direct you to paragraph 2 of Michelle Enzi's email, where she states that the utilities, she does not consider those as a connected action. And as a result, the utilities, and this occurred after the treatment plan had been developed. And so my question to the city is, based on the SHPO's assessment of the utilities in the city alley, would the ARC be willing to consider this as a separate action, as a separate undertaking? And if so, then I would return with a monitoring plan for the city alley utilities at an upcoming ARC meeting.
I don't know what an ultimate opinion of the committee in its entirety might be, but I will offer you my opinion right now. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If the project cannot happen but for the relocation of the utilities, it's under our purview. We'll happily consult with the NEH and the SHPO on the project. I think connected is connected is connected. If utilities can be excluded, so can 2% of somebody's budget be excluded. No offense to you, but this is a bureaucratic nightmare that needs to be fixed. I think
Would
they need to come to us.
the
NEH.
relocation be during this other construction, or is it really?
Prior to.
Prior to.
Yes.
So it is both chronologically and in the opinion of SHPO, a separate undertaking.
It's outside of the area of potential.
And it is within the ARC's purview. So yeah, it needs to come to us as a case.
Okay.
I think. Now, whether or not we can extend that to cover the thing, I kind of skeptical that. I wish we could. That's not the way I read it. Again, we're bound by the world, but the code that I hate so much, so.
The first question I had when I saw this is, what was the text of your email?
It was they're identifying, it was me questioning the city utilities. This didn't come to me until, I wasn't aware of these utilities until early November. And so I had begun questioning, the connectedness of this action and these utilities. And initially, the SHPO had said this might fall under our purview under section 106. But then following further discussion within SHPO, it was deemed separate action.
And these utilities are longer than the minimum 60 feet?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yep, that's the case for the ARC.
Yes, and the other portions of the email had to deal more with construction, the MOA and the treatment plan.
Utilities, we initially were exploring plans that did not involve having to go underground. So a lot of the conversation initially was about alternative ways that we might resolve the issue around utilities. And eventually, after a lot of conversations with PNN, it became clear that this was the way forward. So that is, then when it became like, oh, if we're doing that, that opens up a different discussion.
Yeah, so based on everything I'm hearing, yeah, you need to come to us with a monitoring plan for the relocation of those utilities, separate from all this other stuff.
It's kind of alluded to in here, but it needs to be its own thing.
Yes.
There's a bunch of text in here that directly addresses that, so borrow and embellish.
Yes.
So we'll be happy to come back in January with the testing report, with this draft treatment plan, and with the monitoring plan for the transformer movement in the alley. Yeah.
Yeah, the utilities would be a case and the other would be just informational.
Or discussion. I mean, yes, informational, but I want to really underscore that we very much are here to seek the comment and feedback from the committee, and NEH and SHPO have both underscored the importance of that as a consulting party and as a signatory party on the MOA as well.
I know what you are, and thank you. But our concern is the next guy.
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I know, I hear you in a broader sense.
That bigger
I just
concern.
want to clarify that what our position is.
Yes.
I need to reread this stuff before I can offer any substantive opinions about what's been presented in this plan. But I, just in general, want to express a concern about sequencing and poking holes in the ground before you know enough to not do that. So that's where my thinking is right now, and boring for these pylons is like, ooh. Because, you see, the 10 feet ain't deep enough. A very painful illustration of that is a certain cemetery just over yonder, where things were in excess of 3 meters fairly routinely. And if you're not going there until after, then the potential for serious damage to things that are very deeply goes quite high. And as everyone has said, the testing stopped at ocean minimums. And basically we don't know anything below that. So my teeth are on edge. Anyhow, hands were raised.
Thank you, Chair Rick. Just one quick question. Is the Pueblo of Tusuke consulting party as well?
They are.
Okay, great.
They're also a signatory party on the MOA.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Good.
That is good.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like all the right steps, other than, providing us timely information, all the right steps are being done here. So I do appreciate that. It's just that it's unsettling to have been left out for so long and to find out that it's all perfectly legal because it's all written into the code, but even more so, right? Because there's so much potential for abuse here, right? So, yeah. And also, we rarely, you've been doing the parking garage, right? Oh, and I thought I read that.
There's a
No,
base.
there is a basement, but it's a basement for the building for like collection care spaces.
Oh, okay.
So there will not be parking, there's not parking.
I was under the impression that it was going to be a deep
It says there's a parking lot.
I think I was misinformed then, that it was a ramp into the basement.
I think there's not a ramp into the basement. I think the ramp, I think I know where the confusion came from.
There's
At
only
least
a
on
ramp
one-
for the
there's-
purposes
There's a
of
ramp for
construction.
purposes of construction. That Jim has talked about several times.
We
That
did.
we've had. I
Okay.
think that's maybe where it came from, but there is no parking garage. There is a lower level. It is focused on some of the mechanicals, storage and collections care for us.
Well, I guess that through reading, the first couple of pages before I got frustrated and closed the book, I got the impression that you would be digging down at a depth of like 30 feet. I don't know where that came from. Maybe that's not true.
The construction itself was supposed to be down to 30.
I think it's
That
a
was-
little bit more like 20.
I think it's close to
25.
But I do not, I also don't, I mean, I'm under oath and I don't remember.
Fair enough.
We can clarify the depth.
Okay.
Yes,
I think
those
it was-
things are
So
critical.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 40 feet.
What I was alluding to though was
I think it was.
Chair X's point that we rarely get to see
Some
some
of
of
the
that.
pylons. are
The
the-
And
pylons go much
in the
deeper.
past, when we have, bad things have happened, right?
Yeah,
Sorry.
maybe that-
The pylons were the ones that go 40 feet.
Oh, okay.
It's the whole-
The pylons go deep.
That's good to know.
Monitoring the results of pylon excavation is
A problem.
almost most ineffectual thing I can think of. I'm recalling another cemetery wherein some pylons were being posed and some boring happened. And when people and coffins came up in little tiny bits,
Right.
it stopped. But Jesus, you already did the damage. And everybody rides off into the sunset. A crime was committed. Cultural resources were disturbed
That's
without
right.
a permit.
That's right.
Yikes. Another point, and I think I'll shut up after this. In normal section 106 activities, a lead agency is responsible for seeing that the requirements of any other party who has any jurisdiction whatsoever are also met. If by cutting us out on 2%, the normal city requirement for a 2% test was bypassed, then there's a small sin. As it turns out, depending on the dimensions of the backhoe used by OAS, the testing done may have, I'll go further, probably did meet the city's 2% testing requirements. Probably did, but we're supposed to know that overtly as opposed to hindsight. Again, if the NEH didn't ask what the city's requirements are, they didn't do a good job in consultation. If the NEH didn't take the city's requirements into consideration, they did not do a good job of consultation. A documentation of all this will be very informative, and I don't need to see it. Y'all need to see it because it's your problem. It's a city problem. I'm just telling you that it looks bad. It doesn't pass the sniff test so far. And if I were the king of the world, things would be a hell of a lot different.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, my concerns are twofold, really. I mean, of course, they're for the cultural heritage of the city of Santa Fe, but also it's the impression the public's gonna get if this thing blows up, right? I mean, we already have the black eye from that other case that the chair just mentioned.
Right.
If there are unanticipated discoveries during this process and it hits the front page of the New Mexican and people start to ask, where was the city? Where was the ARC? We're not gonna be satisfied, well, we were cut out by section 14.3.1. That's not gonna carry any water. We're gonna look bad.
Right.
They're all gonna look bad. Right? So let's not allow that sort of helplessness in the future.
Right.
I am so informed, I don't know what to say. Thank you for bringing this forward. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because if dirt had started moving and I hadn't seen this as chair of this committee, the first thing I would have done is call the police. The second thing I would have done is call the sheriff. And having learned something about all that, the third thing I would have done was call y'all and said, it's your responsibility to make sure that everybody else who needs to know knows what's going on. Because if the NEH can't do it, if HPD can't do it, if the city can't do it, it's the proponent that bears the responsibility. And just one little old guy is probably not gonna be here that much longer, but I can make a hell of a lot of noise. And I refrain from doing so at every opportunity. I usually sit in front and shut up. But I can't because I'm supposed to be the chair of this committee. And this really ticks me off. I'm worried about everything he's expressed. I'm really worried. And I'm going to definitely make that suggestion if you don't already make that suggestion.
Yes, sir.
Let's cut it out right now in this phase of ordinance revision so that we don't have to deal with it ever again. Just for your information, we're trying to also talk about moving the city from the strange concept of clearing a parcel forever in perpetuity on the strength of some idiot's 2% test because somebody wants to build a mother-in-law cottage on a 5-acre parcel to approving the mother-in-law cottage and a 2% test of its footprint. And the rest of it is completely not cleared ever until you do investigation. Because we've got to get away from giving carte blanche to a piece of property on the strength of next to nothing. So there's a lot of things in the ordinance revision that will come up. And I'm sure everybody will get a chance to fight about it.
Sure, Eck. So on this email, the treatment plan is on the agenda for December 15th for the CPRC.
No,
Do you
it isn't.
have any, has that been
Other
removed?
than-
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Just wanted to be clear of what an archaeological committee recommendation might be in that regard, so.
Well, I do have a recommendation. So this is going to occur before the CPRC again?
in the-
After the MOA is fully executed
Mhm.
and all comments have been received and the treatment plan has been updated to include the recommendations, then it will be presented to the CPRC for mechanical and burial permits.
It would probably be a career mistake for me to go to the CPRC meeting and raise hell about this, but somebody else sitting next to me has nothing to lose.
Oh, yeah. I will put on sackcloth and ashes. Scourging myself and trying to explain to them what they're.
If I may make a
Doesn't-
request,
Yeah.
I believe that your frustrations are general and related to the city code
That-
and
that-
how
that
it's
is it.
been.
That's exactly the case. You guys are
I
doing.
would just
everything you should.
respectfully ask that this project, that the museum not be made to take the fall for that.
Nobody is making them take the fall.
Well, I'm just saying.
It's not our intent and we couldn't if we wanted to, because we have no authority, right? But
Well, I
that's either
just
way,
mean,
yeah.
like, in terms of, like, the museum has followed every rule that has been brought to their attention that they need to follow. And I just would hope that any comments made to the CBRC would not be, at the.
Fair point. It should be generalized, let's not let this happen in the future as opposed to look what happened here. Because as you point out, nothing improper happened here, just everything.
That
was
is my
supposed to.
understanding.
Our issue is with the code itself, not with how you guys utilize it, I guess.
How it fell out. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So the basic message to the CPRC is that existing city code allows this to happen, and it happened. And we were sort of shocked to find out recently that it happened. And that we're going to try to take steps to make sure it doesn't happen again in the form of excising this offending paragraph from the ordinance. And that's pretty much it. There's not much else to say. Yeah.
And the lesson learned here from staff is, I generally knew about George O'Keefe and had a lot of discussion on the historic preservation side of things. Knew generally about the archaeological side of things. We'll go back and look at our files and see if there are any other cases where we can get additional information. And that may be going on now, that we would need to make sure to inform the ARC. So we'll go back and look in our files to see if there's anything else, so we can avoid this.
Yeah, moving forward, just as how we have requested that when you do an administrative clearance, that you at least notify us. I would think that anytime that you get notice that a project has been federalized, notify us.
Okay.
Right? That way we're not waiting around for 3 years wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that is part of
Yeah.
the frustration. We've known about this project for a long time too, but had no details. Right?
Mhm.
Kept waiting, when are we gonna see something?
Right.
Well, now we realize that other than as an informational, nice to have, we're not going to, right? Which, it's great. I'm very happy to have it, but it also feels like, a glowing summary of a party to which we were not invited. Right? So,
Mhm.
yeah,
So
it's hard
just
not to take that personal.
Just like the administrative summaries you've given us for administrative items, informational items that you've given us for administrative approvals.
Mhm.
Okay. Communications that are relevant to historic preservation would also be appropriate. And I realize that buildings have a certain status and a way of being dealt with. Please try to erase all boundaries between buildings and archaeology in your brain, because we kind of need to know, because often somebody's concerned about the built environment And it's sitting on top of something that is vastly more important.
Mm.
And knowing it before the fact would be really, really good, instead of finding out about it later.
And we're very fortunate to have Paul because he straddles both. So,
Mm.
you know, buildings as well as not, but I'm gonna make sure we talk about that in our staff meeting.
That explains the schizophrenia.
Working on
I
it.
thought that was from me.
Hey, you know that.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, thank you for coming forward with this, because it's really important.
Thank you.
And you already know that there's some language in there that isn't right, because there's no parking structure.
Yes,
Is,
will be resolved.
is there any way to clean up anything before the official comment period ends? Or does it all have
It
to
has
wait?
the comment period, the letter is just now getting ready to go out to initialize, or to initiate the consultations, and I will quickly jump in and revise.
Good, that way nobody's working with old info.
Yes.
Or misconceptions.
Chair X, staff will get you all the information you requested for the OES's testing report, consultation with NEH, and all that information tomorrow for all ARC staff.
And Chair, on the grading portions of the project, I know you had some conversations. So that's even before construction, the grading and demolition. Were we requesting that monitoring occur at the time of grading?
I think we should also request that with the pylons, I know they go 40 feet down. And because of the location and the area and all the adverse impacts to our cultural sites previously, across the street, cemeteries, we would want that all excavated down to make sure we don't impact any cultural sites. And monitored. And then if you have to backfill, tamp it down, however the construction crews are gonna do, we're gonna need that. Because if the pylons, if you're putting 20, 30 pylons at 40 feet down in that location, then we're gonna have to make that recommendation that it's excavated down prior to the installation of the pylons. So we're not impacting any of the cultural sites.
We are going to do our best, and so as.
No, I totally understand.
We are gonna do our best,
Right.
however, at a certain depth, we're going to hit a limit to what we are able to
Right.
safely get in there
Right,
to excavate, because of OSHA.
sure.
So, and that's kind of what I tried to allude to in this plan, that, you know, there's a limit to how far we can go, because there's gonna be a vertical face on one side.
Right,
And where our plan is to step the other, but
right,
Yeah.
right.
Well,
There's
the other thing
also
we
some
don't know is
engineering
There's
problems,
some engineering problems.
because unconsolidated stuff
Mhm.
backfilled in a big excavation without tremendous effort to recompact it won't meet the standards to allow the pylons to be installed in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it might
Right.
defeat, like it might prevent pylons from even being constructed,
Right.
is my point.
Right,
And we are going to hit sterile soil probably around what, 13,
Well, I
14, 15? We don't know yet, but
right.
We're
we
hoping within 15
anticipate
feet.
within
If you
15
go by,
feet,
the
this
Sweeney
project,
Center
yeah.
excavations.
Yeah.
Well, see, that comment bothers me a little bit, because if OAS has done testing, then you should know where sterile is.
Well, we don't, because they weren't able to go deep enough.
Which is why all the stuff stopped at ocean limits.
So then,
Yeah.
so then the testing report is incomplete, right? So if they
It is not-
didn't,
The report itself is not
if,
incomplete, the,
if they did not reach sterile, and that's not known, then I would request that they dig until they meet sterile, so then we know where sterile's at. So it's, that testing report isn't complete until they hit sterile. Cause if it's an unknown, then that's cultural fill all the way until they hit sterile. So it's an unknown, so we,
I understand.
Well, I agree with you. That's the interpretation we would have taken if it were under our purview, but once it became federalized, it was up to the SHPO to make those same comments.
Hmm.
And if they didn't, well, shame on them.
but if they
You
just
can still
received
make
it a month ago, they may have not even reviewed the report.
There have
You
been
can make
multiple
those comments.
conversations.
Sterile has not been demonstrated.
Right.
testing is not complete. And everybody can agree to go forward without completing it. It's not our purview, it's federal deal. If y'all, as the consulting parties, agree that it doesn't need any further testing, we can't say anything different. But you're in a position to say, city code requires. If the undertaking hasn't complied with basic requirements of city code, then you have a problem. So
Understood.
people should listen at that point. And I kind of agree. A couple of deep holes out there to demonstrate where the heck the Santa Fe gravels are, where the bottom of the muck is, and where likely general sterile is, would be very useful. Because if you knew that before you
Be
started all
really
this other
helpful.
stuff.
Right.
it'd really help.
Additional testing has been discussed with SHPO as part of the treatment.
That might be why, even if not necessarily, you know, a screened test unit, but simply a trench, so that you could draw a profile and demonstrate that sterile is at, 18 feet or wherever it is. You know, I mean, surely somewhere within the footprint, you could do a small trench without compromising the pylons or other.
Sure, stay away from the pylon.
You haven't, sorry, I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, a couple of trenches, because there's likely to be tremendous variation in where sterile is. There's likely to be an old channel, not necessarily of the river, but of tributary arroyos to the river that cross that property. There could be 10 feet of variation in where sterile is across the property. So again, knowing the complexities would fit right into the already discussed additional testing, and we don't know what the details of that are, but that too would be interesting. What are the comments about additional testing and thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I guess an informational presentation works both ways, right? I mean, we can certainly recommend all these steps, but we have no authority to actually request them. That would be between you all as proponents and the SHPO and the NEH.
Well, I would suggest that the city staff could relay your comments as a request to SHPO
Yeah.
and NEH.
And they're the only ones that have a leg to stand on. There's a bunch of people.
Well, you guys are an appointed body charged with administering the archaeological ordinance for the city of Santa Fe. And as a result, you have a very powerful voice, I would say.
Well, except when this exemption.
Nothing.
If they will listen to us,
Right.
So if we feed
Okay,
staff
okay.
with a ton of information.
I would suggest putting your comments in writing, if that would be helpful to city staff. I would suggest, I don't know.
I think that's actually a wise approach, that perhaps we could just grab some comments, provide them to the city, and the city provide them to
Compile
the
those
NEH on
to
our
provide
behalf.
to NEH.
Yeah, because as we've all said, none of us have read the thing in its entirety. There's still opportunity to do so and make comment, but we do need to know when the deadlines are.
Well, and it's probably more, well, I don't know how well the results are summarized here, but probably more important to see that testing report. before we
Yes.
start
Yeah, we will.
comments. Right.
Next time.
The summary is great, but it's 3 pages. Full. The report is substantially more.
That's a doctor right there. That's a PhD.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just have a question, Chair Eck, for regarding the historic review side of things. On the side of the Bergari House, there's a cistern that is planned, which is not exactly on this particular site. Is that gonna?
It is.
It's included in the area of potential effect.
They're both.
Oh, it's both are included?
The tree
Okay.
plan does include.
Oh, okay, I was just making sure what, what the jurisdiction would be
Absolutely.
and relative to
All part
that.
of- It's all part of the same undertaking.
Okay,
It's a good point, though. I mean, we have gotten to the point where apparently the SHPO and the proponent have decided the boundaries of the APE. And any work that falls outside of the APE winds back with us,
That's
right? Because it's not considered part of the undertaking, which has a federal grant.
That's right.
So,
yeah, because the construction that's going there is associated with the museum, but not on the museum property. And so that's what I was concerned about. I mean, not on that particular parcel. So the museum owns both parcels, but it's not on the same parcel.
Once the undertaking's area of potential effect is defined, everything's cool. It's
Okay.
part of it, it's being included, and it will happen. The test units suggest,
Yeah,
Snow's old test units suggest the same.
we'll see what happens.
Robin, would you give the ARC until the January hearing to get you your comments?
They're welcome to get me comments whenever. I mean, this is just an informational item,
Okay.
so they're, I would.
This goes to the larger undertaking. When are the comments due to the lead agency?
Correct. Yes.
That's going to be in the letter that the NEH has sent,
Okay, if they send it and the comments are due,
or is sending.
I think either
Go ahead.
tomorrow or Monday
Yeah.
will go out, but
if the date they've selected is the day
But-
before the ARC meeting,
if the city.
We are not
60 days,
expecting
I believe.
to finalize an MOA anytime before April.
And that starts the
Right.
clock, and minimum comment period is at least.
The
30
minimum
days.
comment period is 30
Yes.
days, and the NEH is very accommodating if there's more time requested by them.
So, yeah,
I want to make sure that the clock doesn't
Mhm.
bite us in the butt.
Right, that you have ample time to review the testing report as well as the plan, as well as all staff and Jenkins Gavin's, all the information. That way, you're not rushing getting sidestepped on that.
that would be much
If
appreciated.
you can give us some time on that, Robin, that would be
I
great.
have a full-time job already, I know.
Oh my gosh.
Although I'm up to my ears in another cemetery. Uh-oh. Over the hill, far away,
Oh.
in the lovely town of Las Vegas.
Oh, good luck with that.
Mm.
Thank you all for the opportunity to come before you this evening. We look forward to seeing you again next month.
Thank you so much.
Great, appreciate it. And we're sorry you had to hear all the vendors.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you think I feel beat up.
It's okay. I just want to be clear
Nothing to do with you.
that there's two different matters.
Yeah. I think that's part of the problem is we don't really know who to yell at, right? Because,
Yeah.
so,
Understood.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we have done administrative matters and communications.
Oh, one more question. I apologize. A discussion of stratigraphy in reports. Would you like the stratigraphy to start from top of trench, which may include asphalt base course, then fill or soils as they go down, right? Or do you not want them to count asphalt base course as a stratum and then go into
Are you referring to like the minimum depth?
no, just
The drawing.
just on the profiles themselves.
Yeah.
Standard archaeological method.
Standard, they would generally put.
You draw what you
base
see.
course, yeah, right.
You don't pretend it isn't there.
Yeah.
Draw it.
Because
We had a
that
previous
is
case not too
really
long ago
important.
where there was a
Yeah.
minimum threshold and they were trying to count the asphalt and base course
Mhm.
as part of
Right.
30 centimeters or whatever it was.
Right.
That does not fly. But
Right,
in terms of, yeah,
Okay.
just drawing it. You
draw it
what
as
you see,
is
yeah.
and count the soils as you see them.
Yeah.
Okay,
No different than drawing, a clay pipe that happens to be running through the middle of one of your stratas.
And if I could suggest that if anybody asks you any questions about stratigraphy, hand them 2 or 3 of OAS reports and say, if you do your stratigraphy like this, you'll be fine.
right,
Mhm.
Because they're described
right,
literally instead of just alluded to. And they have colors, set size, context,
So
and whether that relates to that, and this is the same thing as over there, it's the same strat, it's not something else. So
Right.
it needs to be an analysis, not a bunch of
right.
horse puppy.
And it's a scale drawing, not a photograph. A photograph can supplement it, but we saw what happened when you have a photograph and a
Right.
scale drawing side by side, they don't look the same, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also using meter sticks,
Right.
not having your scale up above, on the ground above your photo of your picture gives you no information whatsoever. So a meter stick is necessary to run against the wall,
And in
flat
this,
against the flat
in
wall.
this case, there was a meter stick and a tape running along the top. Well, I'd go so far as to lay something along the bottom too, because perspective. Yes, ma'am.
It changes.
If it pleases the chair, what I would like to do is bring a policy forward next time for the endorsement of the Archaeological Review Committee to clarify that asphalt and base course don't count when it comes to that 37 centimeters. And then distribute that to the archaeological, all the approved archaeologists.
Check the code though. I made that 30 centimeter figure up.
Oh, yeah, whatever it
was.
is, the base course and the asphalt don't count.
As
It's so often in historic road surfaces in that upper extent,
Mhm.
like a
You're right.
concrete road that dates to, the 1920s.
Oh, in the center, kind of.
Yeah, so I got it all over town.
concrete, we
So-
got it's archaeological
Yeah,
concrete.
it is.
Right.
Completely. Yeah.
And I hope to God the tree is fixed.
Yes, making great efforts to have.
Yes.
To make sure that these.
I talk to that tree every time I go by. During baseball season, that's multiple times a week. Normally it's just summer.
We're working very hard to maintain trees and give it a healthier space than it has now.
Yeah, its toes are being pinched.
Its toes are being pinched and anybody who is trying to get past is also being pinched, so it's not great for anybody.
And if the tree is doing the pinching,
Yeah, you really gotta watch out for those trees.
Maybe an ant.
Exactly.
and then, okay.
Thank you.
We are at the end of our agenda, unless there are other matters from the committee, we'll move on to the final item.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Moving and seconded, Gayla,
I'm still here.
moving and seconded, we need a roll call vote.
Member Bechtel?
Yes.
Thank you. Member one? Member
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Motion is.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Yep.
And all-
Thank you.
I wish it
Thank you for everything.
Have to happen again. Now that you're off the record, you want to say something?
Are we off the record?
Let me end the meeting. Oops. Kayla, we'll